Welcome to the Revelations of Life channel. Support us by subscribing and liking the channel. On that day, Olia came home from school early, but from the doorway, she heard that they had guests in the apartment. She looked into the kitchen, but there was no one there. Noise and voices came from her mother's bedroom. Knowing that she should not do this, Olia opened the door. He quickly jumped out of bed and started to dress. His mother lay under the covers and grumbled discontentedly. What a child, as if he did not learn how to knock. Vitya, don't be offended next time, everything will work out. I will definitely see to it. We'll call you later, keep in touch. Olia stood at the door and did not leave. She understood that she was in for a serious conversation. When the young man left, her mother burst out screaming. What are you doing? What kind of person are you? You walk around like a ghost. I need to arrange my personal life and you're in the way. Why are you leaving school so early? Are you skipping classes? My daughter shook her head in denial. No, the geography teacher was just sick, so they let us go. Sorry, Mom, it won't happen again. Olia even cried, and Marina, to calm her down, said, Okay, I'm not mad at you, but from now on knock, or do not come in if there are no important questions. Olia nodded and went out. She sighed with relief because everything went without a scandal. She still remembered that dreadful day when she caught her mother with a man at the most interesting moment. The girl had a hard time from her mother. She had a hard time for bursting into the room. Olia will never forget it because her mother punished her with lunch and dinner. It's all right now, but who knows what will happen if a man comes to the house again. She hasn't seen her daddy in a long time. He went missing 2 years ago. Alenka longed for her father, and he loved her more than life. He was always interested in how her day was going and was very worried when he heard Marina scolding the little girl for every little thing. He tried to talk to his wife, but the woman would make a scandal accusing her husband and daughter, shouting that they were ungrateful and everything was hanging on her, and no one appreciated it. Despite the fact that officially Marina's spouse was listed as alive, she had already gone to all the trouble. From the moment Olga's father disappeared, her mother took men to the house, and each time a new one. Olia does not believe in her father's death. She waits every day for her father to show up and life in their house will change. He will play with her again, love and pity her at least, and she will no longer be afraid of her mother's reproaches and blows. Marina allowed herself this, so to speak, as a preventive measure. My daughter tolerated it because there was practically no one to stand up for her. Her grandmother on her father's side lived in another city and was not allowed to come here. The woman longed for her granddaughter, but the daughter-in-law strictly ordered not to appear at her house, that she would not let her on the doorstep anyway, and the second grandmother, Alenka, almost did not know. Her mother always frightened her daughter that if she did not obey, her mother would send her to grandmother Nina, who would teach her how to behave in a jiffy. Alenka lived in hope of seeing her father again, and she also thought about her grandmother, that it would be nice to go to her, but she did not know the address. But her mother must have letters that her grandmother wrote regularly, but her mother never let Olga read them herself and kept them safely hidden. When Olia came home and her mother wasn't there, there was a note on the table, Daughter, I'll be there soon. I went to a friend's house for a while. In reality, Marina had gone out on a date and didn't even have time to make dinner. Olia had to make herself sandwiches because she did not know how to cook. A little snack girl went to her mother's bedroom and took out of the nightstand a folder of documents. Among the many papers was not the cherished letter with her grandmother's address. Olia was so engrossed in her search that she did not hear the front door open. Marina came into the bedroom and caught Olga on the bedside table. What are you doing, and who gave you permission to rummage through my papers? The girl trembled but found something to answer. I wanted to see my childhood photos and show my friend. Marina took the file from her. What you were looking for is not here. All the pictures are in the album. I'll let you see them later, but why did your friend need them? And then Olia had to lie. She wants to make a story out of them. It's a fashionable thing now. Well, I'm going to go do my homework. Looks like her daughter managed to let her mother's guard down. Anyway, she didn't guess anything and she didn't swear, which meant that her mother's date was a success. That day Marina cooked not only the first and second courses, but even baked a cake, but it turned out somehow tasteless. It was obvious that her mother cooked without a soul. Olia ate without much appetite, But before her mother came into the room, Olia just saw a piece of paper with the phone number of Nina's grandmother. In her pocket, there was something for which she had to risk and lie to her mother, which made the girl feel much more cheerful. The mother looked sternly at her daughter. "Olga, why are you smiling like a lunatic? You seem to be in a good mood. Go and clean your room. Do not annoy me." Understanding that jokes are not good, Olga without a word flew out of the kitchen so as not to anger her mother with her presence. Moving the books on the shelf from place to place, the girl dreamed of an upcoming meeting with her grandmother. It remained to call and arrange a meeting with her relative. She could not and did not want to put up with her mother's reproaches, and she was about to kick her out of the house as she promised. Olia began her vacation. After thinking about it, Marina decided to send Olga to her mother. This news made the girl very sad, but she dared not cross her heart, and her mother would do as she decided all the same. She had to obey in order not to provoke a new scandal. Olia thought that she would feel lonely when she was at Baba Valia's house, and she was afraid of her grandmother like fire. Her mother said that Granny could not stand children. Mother planted a lot of fear in her daughter's soul. With anxiety in her heart, Olia went on the road, but it turned out differently. When she met her granddaughter, the old woman thanked her with warm hospitality, and it turned out that all the judgments about her cruel character were nothing more than her mother's scare tactics. Her mother seemed to be talking about her on purpose so that Olia would be afraid. In one conversation, the girl admitted to her grandmother that she wanted to find her father. Valentina Petrovna looked at her granddaughter and sadly sighed. "I do not know myself what happened to him. I think he went to the construction site, so your mother told me. She called and texted me, and then she just stopped abruptly." Noticing a piece of paper in Oli's hands, Grandma asked, "What are you hiding there?" Not as a love confession from her classmate, Granny smiled good-naturedly. The girl handed her a crumpled sheet of paper. "I found this in my mother's papers." Olia cried and wanted to go into the room, but her grandmother stopped her. "So wait, it says the name Nina, so it's your father's mother. Why do you need her number?" "I thought my grandmother knew where my dad was. I'm sorry, but it's hard to live with my mom. She's always bringing some uncles into the house. She scolds me all the time for no reason." "Grandma, I want my daddy," Olenka cried. Valentina Petrovna hugged the little girl and then said, "You know, and I think that we will call to Grandma Nina that we do not get along with her after one incident, but for your sake, she will agree to a reconciliation." Grandma Valia did not say what the incident was about and what it was about. She dialed the number herself and immediately put her granddaughter on the phone. "Hi, Grandma. It's me, Olia." A joyful voice came over at once. "My God, what a happiness. My dear granddaughter, how are you? I miss you so much. Are you all right?" So many questions that Olia got a little confused. "I'm almost fine, except for the fact that my mother has tormented me with her nagging. She often brings uncles home, and they make me go out so that I don't get in the way." Grandma Nina cried. She was upset about her granddaughter, but she didn't show it. "Olenka, darling, don't worry. Everything will be all right," she reassured the girl. They agreed that Grandma Nina would come to visit. But since Marina will not let her in the apartment, they decided that she will stay with Valentina Petrovna for a while. By the way, it was she who suggested it. "I like this idea, at least it's not boring. But you granddaughter must not say anything to your mother." Olia promised to keep her mouth shut. "I have not said a word that Grandma Nina is coming, but I'm afraid what will happen if my mother finds out." The little girl's fears were confirmed, and a week later, when the vacations were over and the girl came home, her mother was waiting for her with a clear desire to scold her. Marina was sitting in the kitchen, and there was a man standing next to her. "Did you enjoy visiting your grandmother? But I'll give you a hard time. You'll know how to get into other people's things." Marina smacked her daughter to pieces. Uncle calmly sat and watched what was happening with a smirk on his face. Olia could not stand it and shouted, "You're a bad mom, because you go out with just anyone, and you've completely forgotten about Daddy. Why do you dislike me so much? What have I done to you?" Mad Marina responded by shouting, "Get out of my house," and threw her documents at her daughter. Olga cried, and at this time her mother's boyfriend laughed and said, "Why are you bothering with her? She lived with her grandmother, let her go there." The mother called a cab, put her daughter in it, and said, "You'll be better off there." I'll call and I'll meet you there. Whether it was good or bad, in her heart Olia was very happy to be away from home, and finally this nightmare would be over in her life. When the cab driver brought her back, Grandma Valia hugged her granddaughter, and Olia hugged her so tightly, wrapping her arms around her neck, as if she was afraid she would disappear. Your mother was shouting into the phone so loudly that I didn't understand anything. Well, honey, wipe your tears, let's go to the kitchen, and there you will tell everything. Her granddaughter told her that she told her mother everything that they thought, and only then she noticed that grandmother Nina was absent. What happened? Why did Grandma leave? I was so happy to live with you. Valentina Petrovna took her hand and quietly replied, Your grandmother called from a neighbor and said that a stranger hangs around her house. She went to see if anything bad could happen. A smile appeared on Olia's face. A child's heart cannot be deceived. In her mind she was already imagining meeting her father. Grandma, that daddy must be back. Olia jumped for joy. God willing, honey, God willing, Valentina said sadly. They had not heard from Nina for days, and then she called and said she would be back soon. During this time, Marina did not even try to find out how her daughter was. Her mother was busy with her personal business. Finally, the apartment was free, and no one was disturbing or annoying. Olina waited for Grandma Nina, but most of all she hoped that her cherished dream would come true, that her father would be found. After school, she went straight to her grandmother's house, but she stopped near the entrance because there was a man standing there. She saw him from behind, but something familiar about him was apparent. She came closer and looked at his face. Olia shouted, Daddy dear, you're back. Boris grabbed her in his arms and began to twirl. Daughter, how much I have suffered, it is unimaginable. I can't tell you everything. But I'm glad I finally found freedom, and now, my dear, no one will let anyone hurt you. Already at my mother-in-law's house over tea, Boris told me that he had had to work in a closed area. Their passports had been taken away, along with their phones. That's why he couldn't get in touch, and he recently managed to escape from there and get to the first police station. Now these employers are being dealt with by the law enforcement agencies. When it was Olia's turn to speak, she could not hold back and cried. Boris hugged her and asked, What are you, my little angel? You have no one to be afraid of. Daddy is right beside you. Understanding her stressful state, Valentina Petrovna told the whole truth. That's how son-in-law with your disappearance Marina went crazy. I did not even pester her because it is useless. A month has passed since Olenka visited her grandmother. Boris came to himself from what he had been through, and the man made a decision. Calling a cab, Boris took his daughter with him. Let's go and get your things. Yes, and with the transfer to another school to resolve the issue. In the doorway of his once favorite house, Boris stopped for a moment, looked at his daughter frightened, smiled. Well, what are you, princess? Cheer up. He winked at his daughter and took her by the hand and went to Marina. At this time, his wife was having fun with another man. As the doorbell rang, she opened it and was shocked. For on the threshold stood her husband and daughter. Boris did not swear, just went into the bedroom and literally pushed his wife's lover out by the scruff of his neck. Then he began to put the children's things in a bag. Olia will live with me. I'll take care of her. Tomorrow I will file for divorce. Marina poured bitter tears. She did not expect to see her husband alive and well. The woman realized that she missed her happiness. Forgive Boris would never be able to her. A month later, they were officially divorced. Boris took his daughter's school documents and took her daughter to her mother. There the little girl quickly adjusted to life and changed dramatically. Grandma Valia was a frequent guest at her former son-in-law's house. Boris treated his mother-in-law with respect and gratitude. Olia got a lot of friends. The girl did not feel lonely. After all, instead of her mother, who never loved her, as it turned out, she had two beloved and most importantly loving grandmothers. Olia grew up in kindness and love. The child was truly happy. And she never once mentioned her mother. Only on New Year's Eve, she wrote a letter to Santa Claus. She asked that her mother never find her and take her back. As for Marina, she hit rock bottom. The woman led a riotous lifestyle and never once asked how her daughter lived. After a while, Boris took a job at a sawmill that was built by a city businessman near the village. And soon he met a good woman. Vera was raising her son alone. Olenka at first was cautious and wary of a strange woman in the house, but fortunately these were far-fetched fears. Vera turned out to be a wonderful person, a wonderful hostess and faithful wife. One managed to gain the trust of Olenka and fully replace the girl's own mother. Stepbrother Mishenka turned out to be a real friend for Olenka. He always protected her, shared everything and never hurt her. Vera created a real comfort in the house, loved the children and never separated them. Boris was grateful to God for his family, and Olenka finally felt and knew what a real happy family was and knew for sure that now no one would hurt her and betray her, much less drive her out of the house.